All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Catching Up with Jacob, and he is across the Atlantic tonight. He was here on the other side of the Earth in the Western Hemisphere. Now he's back in the European area, back to his home. Jacob Prasch, how you doing, Jacob?
I'm back in Britain and it's good to be here, but it was good to be in the States. But it's going to be better to be in the millennial reign of Jesus and in heaven. The way this world is going, Maranatha.
The way it's going, Jacob. Yeah, I mean, it was good to have you here. Of course, you just went to the East Coast, and you were on the East Coast, and you're feeling well. So praise the Lord for that. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming up on your plate in a minute, but we also have Jay right here, not too far from my house. Jay behind the controls. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Good to see everybody.
Hey, good morning, or actually good afternoon now, Jay. Yeah, so we started morning, but it's already past that. And we have a special guest from Sweden, David Lofstrand. How are you, David?
I'm good, thank you.
Hey, it's good to have you, and we've been meaning to have you here, but I'm glad it worked out. I know you have a very busy schedule, so we do want to thank you for making that the time and joining us here on Catching Up. Welcome.
Okay,
And
thank you for letting me in here. So
yeah, and our dear brother Davey sends his hellos, and to everyone who's watching. He's not able to make it tonight because he is sick. He is ill, and he's recovering after a hard week and at work. And he came down with the flu-like symptoms and stuff like that. So he's not able to come tonight. So he not only sends his hello to David, but also to all those who are watching and those who really care for Davey. And he's a wonderful brother. He cares for a lot of us and takes care of a lot of us in terms of how we're doing and things like that. So he's a very integral part of our episode. We'll miss him, but Davey, get well. God bless you. And Jacob, so where are you going to be at now? Hard to keep up.
The next stop is Republic of Ireland on the 2nd of November. We shall be in Newton Abbey with Pastor Stephen Trimble at Calvary Pentecostal Church in Newton Abbey on Doa Road. That'll be on the 2nd. Details are on the Moriel website. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we will be at Agape Christian Fellowship, Orangefield Crescent. The times are all on the website. We'll be looking at Daniel and prophecy. Then we're in the Republic of Ireland on the 6th in County Roscommon at Boyle Christian Fellowship. All of these dates are listed on the Moriel website. Unfortunately, although we acquired more space and more rooms, the conference for Britain and British conference for England and Wales is completely booked out. We can't take anyone else. Unfortunately, we've exhausted all the accommodation that was available. It's just filled up faster than we expected, and we asked for more rooms and we got them, but those are gone. Nothing we can basically do. But if you will be joining us, we're looking very much forward to seeing you. After that, I'm on to India, and we will keep you posted beyond that. But it was wonderful to be in the United States. Met some wonderful believers in a number of places, had some blessed meetings. But when I was in the United States, of course, the present war with Israel broke out. And we've been in a bit of a tipsy since then, along with a lot of other people. We, of course, have a branch in Israel, and there are people in the Moriel ministry team in Israel who have sons and so forth serving in the Miluim, serving in the reserves, serving in combat units. So we've been very much active in sending support to believing soldiers in the military. If you're in the regular military, the army provides a lot of things that you basically need. But Israel is not a big country or a wealthy one, really, and they send a lot of things. People bring their own socks and their own toothpaste and things like that. So Moriel has been supplying believing soldiers, and we've also been sending things like thermal socks, footwear to believers who are in the military who are giving it to their comrades who are unsaved and saying, this is a gift from Christians who support Israel and who stand with the Jewish people. And it provides witnessing opportunities. So we are quite active, and we have been making some fairly major financial contributions to a ministry in Israel that supports soldiers in the military. The details of that are on the Moriel website. Again, we don't ask for money, we ask for prayer. But if you are led to contribute to the assistance of soldiers in the military, and most believers are on combat units, you can do that through the Moriel website and just put Soldiers Fund. We assure you every penny, every cent will go directly to believers serving in the Israeli military. Again, Moriel.org. It's all on there. Meanwhile, back to you, Marco.
Thank you, Jacob, and quite a bit of stuff going on. So please keep them in prayer. I met some of the believers. I met some believers there and their sons. So please keep them in prayer. It's very precarious, and we'll be talking about that very heavily today. Meantime, I'm preparing to visit Davey and the believers in Australia and New Zealand coming up in November. I wish he was here. I always forget the email information, but if you would email the church at devortruth@gmail.com for more information on our trip to Australia and New Zealand. I believe the itinerary will be posted and more information will be given out, but it's coming up in a couple of weeks. So very much looking forward to meeting the believers there. And David Lister will be joining us there as well, as he's already on the Far East, so he'll be joining us there. So we're looking forward to meeting all the believers there, and wonderful to see some of them on our Bible study last night. And it's just going to be great. So we appreciate your prayers. More importantly, we appreciate that you keep us in prayer throughout the trip, and to encourage and edify the church in Australia and in New Zealand. It'll be good to see Pierre, and we'll get to see some of the believers there. And we're looking forward to those ministries and churches that are joining us and allowing us to speak at their ministries and fellowships. So thank you so much. Anything else? Jay, was there anything else on the podcast that we need to mention?
Just that the podcast will be available for next week. Obviously, the last week's episode of Catching Up with Jacob will be up, as well as the Exodus Bible study and Sandy Simpson's second John now. So just make sure you can download those from Apple, from Spotify, and from Amazon Podcast.
Amen. And I just want to let everybody know that those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube live, we will be going into the other platforms for Backstage. So while you're watching, catching up on those platforms, we will be going to the other ones on Backstage. We won't be on YouTube or Facebook, but you can join us on Rumble. You can join us on Vimeo. You can join us on Telegram. You can join us, of course, on our flagships, Moriel.tv, MorielTV.org. You can also join us on Rumble, which has been very, very friendly to us, and we appreciate them, and also on RTN. So all these things, many, many platforms, but we will not be on on Backstage on Facebook and YouTube. So you can join us on the other platforms as you may wish to. And it's been going great. Plus, I want to add that the shorts and some of the smaller clips that are being made by the Moriel team has been fantastic. So a lot of good feedback on some of the smaller videos. So we take the larger videos like today, we condense them into smaller fragments, sometimes sound bites, and it's easy to share those. And it's wonderful to share some of the truth that the Lord has given us to share and promote. So please continue to watch our shorts and videos, and many more things to come. And Jay, we have something tomorrow, aren't we? There's a live stream tomorrow, isn't there?
Yes, there is a live stream, the first ever live stream of Ken's Corner. So if you'd like to join us, it's going to be 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will be on Rumble and YouTube, and it's going to be a different format than you're used to for Ken's Corner. We're going to be taking questions directly from chat to both Ken and I. So we'll be under fire for exactly 1 hour. Prepare your questions, and no topic is off topic, usually, as you know, with Ken's Corner.
That sounds dangerous.
Yes, it does.
That sounds dangerous, but quite a bit of fun. So aside from that, these are all, that's it. That's all the little announcements that we have. So as you're watching live, we welcome you in the name of the Lord. We thank God for you. We're going to get into catching up in some of the subjects here. So let's do it. Jacob and David and Jay, let's catch up. Jacob, I left for a week. and it just seems like the whole world went absolutely insane. And I came back and was on fire. All these things going on from the attack on October 7th, and we've seen the gruesome, the imagery, the images, and all the massacre of the Jewish people that happened in the kibbutz and near the areas there from Gaza. And you guys talked a lot about that yesterday. We're not here to rehash the whole thing, but the new information and even more intense, because things have not quieted down. It seems like Israel has gotten the green light. This is, of course, regarding the invasion into Gaza. Not sure when it's going to happen, but it seems like Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, has been talking to his troops. It seems like that's going to happen, which is going to be just bring the entire world against Israel. But many other things are going on as well. Not only did Biden visit Netanyahu on Wednesday, it seems to be coordinated with him leaving, and all of a sudden Israel's ready to go. I don't know how much of that swayed Israel, if the U.S. is giving the green light as well, but we'll talk about that. The Iranian troops are moving. There's plenty of movement in the Iranian side. There's drone attacks on military bases in Syria, U.S. military bases in Syria. There's evacuation of the UN. Lots to talk about, but where do you want to start? Let's start there.
Well, I suppose the best place to begin is the chaos, not just in the Middle East. Everyone knows about that. And the political turmoil. How can Netanyahu's government even survive this? But the pandemonium that's gone on in the United States. We see the weakness of the Republican Party, despite the corruption and incompetence and failures of the Biden administration. We see the Republican Party is pretty much a joke in itself. The rhinos are divided against the conservatives. The rhinos are as bad as Biden, as bad as Obama. They're just as bad. And because of the rhinos, we don't have a Speaker of the House during a time of international crisis, of strategic crisis, and a time of also a fiscal crisis that's blossoming. How are you going to fund things when you can't pass a budget? And how are you going to pass a budget when there's no Speaker of the House? Not only that, but let's remember the Speaker of the House is third in line to the presidency. So if anything happened to Biden and Harris, there'd be nobody to be the president. This is purely the fault of the worthless, garbage Republican Party. I realize that there are conservatives in the Republican Party who I respect, like Senator Cruz, Senator Kennedy. I realize that Donald Trump was a wild card. He was not an establishment Republican. But your establishment Republican Party, who were blocking the replacement of McCarthy with Jim Jordan, it just shows you that the Republican Party is not a viable alternative to anything. Now, this is the same in Britain. In Britain, the Conservative Party has become such a failure and a joke. It has lost two major by-elections in England yesterday. By-elections are indications of what is likely to happen if the national elections were held in the near future. They're indications of what is most likely to happen in the next elections for Parliament and Prime Minister. And the Conservative Party has become so weak and so incompetent. It's not a party of any real substance at the moment. It hasn't been for some time, and it certainly is not now. So you've got a terrible Labour Party in Britain, as you have a terrible Democratic Party in the United States. But there's no alternative because of the weakness of the Conservative Party in Britain, which is really not all that conservative anymore. The Thatcherites and Churchillians are not in control. And of course, the rhinos in the United States. They're only about power and self-interest. They're not about the good of the country. This is a bad situation. You had these silly people speaking rubbish. I'm not attacking them personally, but what came out of Dick Morris and Newt Gingrich was just a lot of rubbish. With all their promises and big talk about the way that the midterm elections were going to go, they lost seats in the Senate and only narrowly took the House. It just shows you what ridiculous garbage the Republican Party truly is. And there's so many people, including many Christians, who don't see it. They know the Democrats are no good, but they're looking to an alternative that's not that good either. We are in a political turmoil, a political crisis. There is a power vacuum. There is nobody there. The Republicans cannot even get a Speaker of the House, even though they control the House, howbeit narrowly. This is not a good situation. It indicates the real state of the United States government and of the United States as a nation. And the same is true for Britain. We have to understand it. It's falling to pieces. It's become dysfunctional. Donald Trump is in large part responsible for the midterm election fiasco. He's in large part. He's not the savior people that many people think he was. He's modified his position more in a pro-abortion direction for a later date abortion. He's had that homosexual gala at Mar-a-Lago, attended by Carrie Lake and other Republicans. He's not as conservative as people think. He's a politician. Even when he was Christian influenced, he was surrounded by hucksters, religious hucksters like Paula White. They were his evangelical advisors. People who are putting their faith in Mr. Trump or putting their faith in the Republican Party, and Christians who are doing that are being very, very gullible and naive. They don't realize the seriousness of the situation. That's the United States. Israel, I do not know how Mr. Netanyahu is going to survive this. The same as Golda Meir could not survive the intelligence failure
of Yom
of
Kippur.
1973. How is Mr. Netanyahu going to understand the intelligence failure of 2023? The same time of year, same scenario.
Yep.
Surprise attack.
On a
That
holiday.
is what
Yeah. It seems like a worldwide failure, Jacob, no doubt. And Israel's basically fighting for their lives and their existence right now. As some have said, apocalyptic, seems to be apocalyptic. Let's talk a little bit about that, because they seem to have the green light. Now, there's some scrimmages in the north already. And I was talking to some of the believers up there, and there's some towns that have been evacuated already. But Hezbollah has perhaps been given the green light by Iran. There's night movements by the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and drone attacks against U.S. bases. So Libya's offering weapons to Hamas. What do you make of this? There's evacuation urgencies right now, not only from embassies, but citizens.
The corruption, the incompetence of the Biden administration, which is essentially a reinvention of the Obama administration. Not just Robert Malley. There are other Iranian operatives.
That's right. That's right.
Pivotal positions with access to classified information throughout the Biden administration, and they know it. You've got somebody who's either a traitor or an imbecile as National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. That means he can only be one of two things. He's either a complete imbecile or he's a traitor. If he's not an imbecile, then he must be a traitor. This is what you've got. Total incompetence, and our enemies know it. They saw what happened in Afghanistan, and they made their move.
That's right.
They know that they know that Biden is a senile corruptocrat. Now let's look at what is not being told to us, but that everybody in the know actually knows, and the mainstream media is, of course, avoiding. There are three things, at least, that are being ignored. When Biden was in Israel, as a public relations stunt because of the election coming next year, and that's what it was. It was more of a stunt. The United Nations restriction on Iranian export of drones was allowed to expire at the UN. The Biden administration did nothing in the Security Council or the General Assembly to either renew or extend that restriction on Iran providing attack drones. Most of the drones being used to attack the Ukraine are Iranian manufacture, howbeit with what was original Russian technology. Iran has a factory in Russia making drones. The Iranian drone threat is substantial. it was allowed to expire during this war with Hamas, controlled by Iran, and Biden said and did nothing. He allowed the Iranians to continue making them. He has done nothing to reinforce the embargoes on Iranian oil that Donald Trump had. He's simply frozen the 6 billion pittance. Not that 6 billion is a pittance, but compared to the fact that their oil revenues have been allowed to triple, courtesy of Joe Obama, it is a pittance. If Biden was really serious, there would not simply be 2 aircraft carriers in the Eastern Mediterranean. There would be 2 aircraft carriers in the Arabian Sea near the entrance to the Persian Gulf. That's what there would be, but there aren't. He's letting these Iranian spies run wild in the government, same as he did with the Chinese. Again, the man is either completely senile and stupid, or he's a traitor. Now, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's a senile, half senile, incompetent, but he's surrounded by people who are making these decisions.
That's
like
the worst part.
Sullivan, who has no military background whatsoever, none.
All the Harvard
A
graduates.
chief politician general like C.Q. Brown and Miley before him, just political bureaucrats with stars on their shoulder. A chief politician general who's unfit to be certainly not a general, let alone chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. His priority is woke, not national defense. This is the kind of clowns you have.
Yeah, this is the crazy stuff.
It is frightening. It is frightening. Since the Obama changed the law in 2016, the CIA is able to conduct internal intelligence operations against Americans and inside the United States, just like the KGB. It was no longer restricted to external operations. The CIA is not there for what it was supposed to be there for in its charter. Now it is just part of the deep state, and it is a political apparatus of a corrupt administration. All of this is going on. Biden, despite his talk, despite the cloud, the smokescreen of his visit to Israel, he allowed the UN restriction to expire, and he said and he did nothing about it. Nothing about the Iranian oil embargo, and nothing about continuing to fund the Palestinian Authority and the UN agency that basically gives social program funding to Hamas that doesn't help the people, but's diverted by Hamas. It's business as usual with the facade. He's all talk. Everything that comes out of that man's mouth is basically a lie or a joke. That is true in defense and foreign policy, but it's also true in the economic policy. You have a proven clown, a silly old clown. Janet Yellen say America can easily afford this. When GDP is not adequate enough, when you have government debt, public debt, that exceeds the GDP.
125%.
Now, this is the same clown, the same silly old clown who was with the Fed before she was Treasury Secretary, and this silly old clown of a woman said inflation is just going to be a glitch. It's only going to be something temporary. It's a blip. And then she comes back 2 months or 3 months later and says, we were wrong about it. It's a problem. She's an incompetent. She's just another incompetent. So you have a half senile corruptocrat with a son who ought to be on trial and him with them, surrounded by people who don't know anything, both in the economic sphere and in the strategic sphere. We are in very serious trouble, and a Republican Party that is not a viable alternative.
Yeah, it's not going to fix it.
Divided between rhinos and conservatives, and rhinos don't give a damn about America. The Bush legacy of the Bush dynasty proves it. They don't care about America. They're rhinos.
Yeah, well, it's a uniparty, Jacob. It's a uniparty. It's basically, they take turns. They take turns robbing America. They take turns kicking down Israel. That's really all they do. And let me go back to
Bush administration. The Bush Cheney administration proved rhinos don't care about America. Look what they did after September 11th.
Yeah, Jacob, let me go back to these attacks on the Syrian U.S. bases here in Syria. There's at least 3 of them that have been under attack, maybe more, but at least 3 that we can document.
7.
7 of them? Yeah, I can only document.
Syria, there's been 7.
Yeah, I can document 4, but I don't know about the other 3. But nonetheless, if it's 7, this is going to bring the U.S. into confrontation with the war. Do you think I mean, there's already 4,000 Marines added to the 2 carriers already in the Mediterranean, plus in the Gulf of Oman. This is going to drag into a major war. Are you concerned right now, Jacob? This is about as concerned as I've been, but are you that concerned that something is going to happen in the next 48 hours?
Also, remember the American Navy downed 3 missiles fired from Yemen, fired from that far away.
Yes, that was last night. Yeah,
it's already has engaged in combat operations.
You can say it's already a war. Yeah, you can literally say, yeah, you're right.
Say that. You can already say that. 2 American hostages were released today, a mother and daughter. But that's about it. That's been the only real progress. But for Biden to go to Israel with his lip service and his charade and say nothing and do nothing with the UN restriction expiring, that tells you everything you need to know. He's a liar. He's unprincipled. He doesn't care about Israel, and he doesn't care about America. He just doesn't care. He let those 13 people left to die on the runway and the tarmac in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
and gave $80 billion to the Taliban. Now, some of those weapons have been shipped from the Taliban via Iran to Hamas, courtesy of Biden.
Yeah, it's even worse than that, Jacob, because some of the weapons that were sent to Ukraine that nobody accounted for, which we said here, they're going to be sold to the black market to the nearest spot, to the nearest buyer, and those were the terrorists in the Middle East. So the same weapons we sent over there are now killing Jews and possibly kill Americans if there's an invasion of Gaza, and the U.S. participates in that. But obviously, the drone attacks are a big concern because, Iran's got a great technology on the drone. I mean, people don't give. They don't understand how far along Iran is in drone technology. This is some scary stuff.
Well, when Barack Obama gives you a check for $150 billion, what do you expect? Money's no problem. And if you got the money, you can buy anything.
Well, they just gave him access to about $50 billion last week from the Biden administration. Access to it. They unfroze $6 billion of it, plus access to another $50 billion from Europe. So, Jacob, in terms of your level of threat, 1 to 10, this is about as high as you've seen in Israel, a level of threat this high?
I have not known a threat this serious since 1973. Wow. I was talking to one of the messianic leaders of the body of Yeshua in Israel yesterday, who's in he's in a leadership role in a ministry that is involved with believing soldiers in the Israeli army, that Moriel is supportive of it. He's got a pretty important position in the body of Christ, body of Yeshua in Israel. And in our conversation, I used the term, it was in Hebrew, but I'll translate it. I use apocalyptic, something apocalyptic proportions. And he said that's what the believers are saying. That's what the believers in the military are saying. It can blow. Now, what I would do, however, is remind ourselves that Yeshua said, you'll be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. Nagorno-Karabakh, a rekindling of tensions in the former Yugoslav. Obviously, the Taiwan threat, the Ukraine certainly, and now the Middle East. This is what is not being told us. Now, the people in the State Department, the Pentagon, the CIA, NATO, MI6, they all know this, but they're keeping it out of the media as much as they can. What has happened? Because Biden is trying to protect Iran, saying we have no evidence that Iran told them to do this. This is nonsense. Here is what's really happening. Mark my words, I am positive. Before this attack happened, it was coordinated by Iran with the consultation and participation of both Putin and China, Jinping and Putin. What they're trying to do is stretch Western resources, financially, manufacturing capacity of ordinances, weapons, military support to the Ukraine, that was already depleting our own reserves of weapons and munition, now expanding it into Israel. This is to the advantage of China in its policy of threatening Taiwan, and it is to the advantage of Putin in the Ukraine. Zelensky is a Jew. The drones attacking Kiev and Odessa are Iranian drones that are now aimed at Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem. Same manufacturer, same source. The Iranians have acted in concert with China and with Russia. Before this happened, Biden is doing the only thing he knows how to do: tell unbelievable lies. Obama was more of a professional liar. Everything that came out of Obama's mouth was a lie, but he knew how to lie. Biden is too senile to lie convincingly. The same kind of people you had in the Obama administration, Jake Sullivan, and he had, of course, had Valerie Jarrett and others. Horrible people. Biden's got to say Susan Rice, another one. These are horrible, horrible people. But you have no alternative. Mr. Trump damaged his credibility with the midterm elections, and by going the direction he did, compromising on the homosexual issue. I don't believe God's hand is on him. I'm not saying he won't win. I'm just saying God's hand is not on him the way it was. Who's the alternative? I'd love to see an alternative, Mr. DeSantis or somebody who is a conservative, but that doesn't seem to be happening within the Republican Party. So you've got a vacuum. You've got these no good, virtually treasonous, many would say, figures in the Biden or the Joe Obama administration. And you have no viable alternative. They can't even select and get on back of a viable Speaker of the House. It's a mess. They're hogtied. Imagine being hogtied and you tied the knots yourself. That's the Republican Party. The Republican Party is hogtied for slaughter, and they tied the knots themselves. And matter of fact, they bought the rope.
The Iran, China, Russia connection that you talked about, that, and this is a coordinated attack. A couple of weeks ago, well, about a week and a half ago, I did a video on it, which talked about how China is really trying to get the U.S. to be spread so thin across multiple fronts, multiple wars, so they would actually be able to take Taiwan very simply.
Exactly.
The U.S. won't be able to really deal with it. Taiwan, Ukraine, Israel, the southern border, which we know that there's been, let's say, some Chinese agents who have been crossing that southern border of the United States. Jacob, do you think this is going to, is going to work? Not that the fact that you have some very incompetent people in the government and there is no opposition party, at least as far as we can tell, this is going to be very damaging, not only in the way the world operates in terms of the U.S. being sort of the defender of those who are being, you want to call it oppressed, you want to call it all kinds of things. It's been the policeman of the world for a long time. Now it's not able to do it.
At one time in history, there was Pax Romana. Another time in history was Pax Britannica. Britannia ruled the waves.
Yes.
Since the end of the Second World War, has been Pax Americana. Well, due to Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, John Kerry and co., and the Bush dynasty, Pax Americana is in a danger of collapsing, and the dollar as the basis of the world currency reserve with it. It is the fault of our own leaders and the stupidity of our own people for voting for such leaders and empowering them.
I agree. I agree.
That is what has happened. On top of that, it is God's judgment because of the moral landslide that has taken place in the Western world.
That
Germany is in recession. Germany is in recession. Britain is in serious economic trouble. Nearly about 25% of the families in Britain are living below the official poverty line. 25%. Now, a lot of them are Muslim immigrants who don't belong here anyway, but 25% of the families in Britain are below the poverty line. Germany is in a mess. The only thing that has kept the United States buoyant, really, until now, other than its debt, and of course God's grace, the fact that America has blessed Israel more than other countries, things of that nature, and has sent the most missionaries, but that's only gone so far for so long. Let's understand this. It is only because China and Russia are in worse economic shape than the United States, Germany, Britain, the West. That's the only reason, is because our opponents are in worse shape economically than we are. That is the only thing. They're worse off than we are. That is a heck of a situation to be in. But that is the situation that exists.
Jacob, what do you make of Putin sending that reminder? He didn't call it a threat, but he says, I'm just reminding everyone that, we're here. They're sending some MiG-31 aircrafts to patrol the area. Obviously, keeping an eye on the U.S., keeping an eye on those aircraft carriers. They're flying over the Black Sea and stuff like that. So just a polite reminder, perhaps, or is Putin really moving the chess pieces, as it were, knowing that he's got Joe Biden perhaps against the wall?
He is hoping that, again, with this stretching of America's resources that was coordinated with China and Persia, with Iran, he's hoping that. But the only thing Putin has really done concerning the United States and NATO is move the deck chairs on the Titanic. He bit off far more than he can chew when he invaded the Ukraine. He did not believe that Finland and even Norway will come into NATO and give him another 740 miles, not kilometers, miles of
was
border.
it Sweden? Was it Sweden?
Sweden wants to join NATO.
Yeah.
Soon will be in NATO, probably, but Finland is already there.
Yeah.
He's created another 740 miles of border with a NATO country. He's caused NATO to expand east, on top of the economic impact and the other impact it's having on the brain drain and so forth. He bit off more than he can chew. He's a desperate man, and desperate people do desperate things.
I don't doubt that, but he's talking about their missiles, the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. I mean,
Yes.
these can take out one of our carriers. I mean, it could hit one of our carriers for sure.
It absolutely could, but he knows there will be ramifications for that.
Oh, they would be
What
terrible.
troubled him, why he's saying it, is this. The United States has been very cautious about they gave the HIMARS system to the Ukraine, but they gave only a limited amount of M1 tanks, of Abrams tanks, only a limited amount. But now he has done something, the Americans have done something substantial. They have given the Ukrainians ATACMS missiles that are longer range, and in their first deployment, in their first engagement, they destroyed 14 Russian helicopters, attack helicopters. They took out 14 Russian attack helicopters in one strike to an already hurting Putin. Putin is angry about it. He knows he is having problems on the battlefield with the Ukraine. And therefore, he gets more desperate. He must stir up a war in the Middle East. He must get America to dilute its capacity to supply the Ukraine. He has to do that. And he has to make more threats. That's what he's doing. Now, what is interesting is this. Notice these ships with these missiles are not being deployed in the Mediterranean or the Aegean. In other words, they're not going through the Dardanelles and through the Bosporus. They're not going through Turkey into the Mediterranean. They're going to the southern shores of the Black Sea, which will just about put them in range of Israel and Lebanon. He doesn't have to enter the Mediterranean to attack the American fleet.
Correct.
He can do it from the Black Sea at a long distance. Now, however, their flagship, the Moskva, was in an act of not just defeat, but humiliation, sunk by the Ukrainians, remember?
Yeah, that was good. Actually, is it early this year or last year?
Yeah, they already lost their premier guided missile cruiser already. Russia is very good at rattling the sabers, but you often find out the sabers are rusty. So we can't put anything past them. Yeah. But we also know that a lot of what he says is rhetoric.
What do you make of the black flag on the Razavi shrine up in Iran? This is Islam going for an all-out war? Is this? I mean, you've seen the black flag. You know what it is. This comes from the Quran and what Muhammad called it. Ready for jihad. Interesting that they put it up this week. What's your take?
Not only that, but it's Iran. Sunnis haven't done that. It's Iran who are Shias.
Correct.
And you have to understand the Shia mentality is very much looking for the Mahdi, for the Islamic Antichrist, who they believe is the Messiah, is the Christ. Remember, in Islam, our Christ is their Antichrist, and their Antichrist is our Christ.
Yeah.
Now, this is what is a rallying point. Going back to a quote from Muhammad after the Hudna, when he fled from Mecca to Medina, once he regathered and reorganized and got the numerical advantage, it became the rallying flag to prepare for jihad. And the fact that they are flying it in Iran sends a signal to the Iranians. Now, a lot of educated Iranians don't like the mullahs and don't like them. They're not even anti-Western. They're not even anti-Israel. You'll see Iranians in California who hate the mullahs. But the poor people are suckers for it. The entirety of North Tehran, cities like Qom, Isfahan, you've got these uneducated people following uneducated mullahs. Yeah. And Khomeini and Randisi can say whatever, the same as Ahmadinejad. They can say whatever they want and the people will do it. You're dealing with extremely ignorant, extremely stupid people. Intelligent Iranians tend to see through this. Iran is dangerous. But what has made it dangerous? Barack Obama and Joe Biden have made Iran dangerous. They were down to about $4 billion in foreign reserves before Joe Obama stepped up and filled their coffers in order to fund terror and allowed Iranian intelligence agents in key positions in the American defense establishment. This is open treason. If in the mind of many people who've looked at what they've done.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, Jake, because you don't have an opposition party, so it really doesn't matter what they do.
There's no opposition party. Yeah. You've only got the Democrats, the Democratic Party, and the other bucket of scum known as the Republicans.
This is what they posted. This is what Iran posted. When the black flag comes from Khorasan, go to them, even if you have to crawl on snow. For among them is the Khalifa from Allah,
That's right.
The Mahdi, of course, this is what you're referring to, that in Shiite theology, or we call it eschatology, if you want to put it that way. The Mahdi is the Antichrist that is coming, that they're looking for. And this is, of course, Shiites are very much proponents of violence and attacks in order to bring the Mahdi, the ultimate revelation of their Messiah, to bring it to pass. Jacob, you did a study a while ago, maybe not that long ago, but it was called The Prince of Persia. And I want to bring this back to where we are, because is what we're seeing here in terms of Iran, Israel, the attack, is it, in your perspective, something that we ought to pay attention because it's a biblical proportion?
I've been saying for many years that what you see controlling Iran since the fall of the peacock throne of the Shah in the late 70s, due to the weakness of and the cowardice, but certainly the weakness of Jimmy Carter, is just an inept. He was seen by Iran as a weak, spineless idiot, and I'd have to agree with him. When the Shah fell under Jimmy Carter, and he let it happen, and Bani Sadr couldn't hold the government, and Khomeini came to power. That is when they became emboldened. But what was on back of it? What was on back of it? Ayatollah Khomeini is no doubt the Prince of Persia that fought with Michael in Daniel chapter 10. That Persia, Iran, would emerge as a satanic instrument to try to destroy Israel at the close of the age in order to prevent the return of Christ. I have no doubt that what you're seeing is exactly that. Now, let me go just a little bit further when that happened. Think of an American president who gives money to Iran, who pays Iran bribes to release hostages, who provides military ordnance to Iran. Okay? A president who exhibits symptoms of senility, and then who lied when these things are brought to public attention. Who does that sound like?
Joe Biden.
Tried Ronald Reagan. Remember Contragate?
Yep. That's
Reagan gave money
downfall.
to Iran. Reagan paid Iran to get those hostages abducted in Lebanon. Reagan made arms transfers to Iran. Reagan kept saying, I don't remember. And he was later diagnosed with senility. But he kept saying, I don't remember when he had to testify before Congress. I don't remember. And
No,
of
I
course,
remember as a little kid, Iran Contra issue. I was in Nicaragua at the time, and that was a big thing that was going on.
big deal. And of course, Reagan's was highly reliant, like Biden's wife leads him around because he doesn't know where he's going or what he's doing. Reagan's wife used to stand on back of him after he gave that speech saying it's well known that trees cause 85% of pollution. And Nancy used to stay on back of him to try to make sure he didn't say or do anything too stupid. Nancy Reagan was having fortune tellers come to the White House. Jean Dixon.
Oh, yeah, it was well known.
So you've got this, he's married to a witch, an old witch, a practitioner of what the Bible calls witchcraft, advising her husband. Does Biden disgust me? Yes. Does the Democratic Party disgust me? Yes. But Reagan was no better. How was Reagan any different? He did the exact same things. The Biden administration is corrupt. Poindexter, Meese, McFarland, Weinberger. Reagan's henchmen were all indicted. All of them. He had a corrupt, sleazy administration. He provided money and weapons to Iran. He paid for hostages. He lied. Then he pled senility. His wife used to try to keep him under control. He was the same as Biden. I don't see there's a difference. Biden wants to appoint pro-abortion judges to the Supreme Court. What did Ronald Reagan do with Sandra Day O'Connor? Appointed a pro-abortion judge to the Supreme Court. That judge in California who outlawed Proposition 8 that the people of California voted for, same-sex marriage. Who nominated that judge to the bench? Ronald Reagan, a homosexual judge. I just don't see a difference between Democrat and Republican. And I'm appalled at the naivety of so many Christians who live in this delusional fantasy about the Republican Party and about Reagan as if he's some kind of a Christian conservative icon or something. They're all corrupt. They're all no good. We are under God's judgment. There is no righteous leader. In certain respects, Trump came the closest. Trump came the closest in certain respects. I will grant that. But that's not the state at the present time. No. We are in serious trouble.
Yeah, it reminded me of Romans 1, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Iran, back to the Iran issue, Jacob, because you have Ibrahim Raisi who's talking about, hey, if this keeps going, we're going in. If this keeps going in Gaza, we're going in. The foreign minister of Iran says it's time's up. Going back to your message on the Prince of Persia from Daniel 10, our State Department, whether it's the Uniparty, whether it's Obama's, whether it's Biden, whether it's any one of the parties that you talked about, any one of the State Departments, it's beyond them, because you're dealing with a spiritual issue here, not just a political military issue. And the Prince of Persia is well alive, causing many problems that the State Department has no idea what they're doing. And in fact, they may be influencing them. Whatever principalities in the White House is certainly influencing them.
Look, when you have a senile corruptocrat in the Oval Office, all the Iranians see is a combination of weakness and incompetence. At least they feared Trump. Who do they fear now? They have no one to fear.
Yeah, nobody, for sure. The protests around the world, Jacob, you saw them with what happened with the hospital and the fake news that came out there. But the protests around the world were concerning. Istanbul, Montreal, Canada, Baghdad, Iraq, Lebanon, Amman, Jordan, Tehran, Barcelona, Berlin, Toronto, Greece, Rabat. Anti-Israel ones, anti-American ones, going into the Israeli embassy in Amman, going into the Israeli embassy in Turkey. Biden says he has an obligation to be involved in this war. It just seems like it's unleashing a demonic force in the world, and nobody's able to stop this.
Let's look at the so-called hospital attack that never happened. I watched a hypocritical liar, the ambassador of the Palestinian Authority in London, being interviewed by Piers Morgan on a news clip. Now understand, he doesn't represent Hamas, and he doesn't represent the people of Gaza. The people of Gaza rejected and voted out the Palestinian Authority because Arafat's people and Abu Mazdin's people and the Palestinian Authority embezzled the money given to help the people and to build an infrastructure. They stole it. So the people turned to Hamas. The Palestinian Authority tried to take over Gaza by force when they lost the election, and they were driven out by Hamas. Hamas is trying to get the West Bank. In the war between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, they killed 8,000 Palestinian Arabs in Gaza. That's far more casualties than have been killed so far. Far more. 8,000 killed by... And this guy is on there defending what's happening in Gaza. They hate each other. He's playing a card because he's afraid Hamas is going to get control of the West Bank, the same as Hamas got control of Gaza. It's all a hypocritical lie. They've killed more Palestinian Arabs than the Israelis ever did. And at least the Israelis did it in self-defense. They did it just to get power. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. This liar was there saying, I want to have a moment of silence for the 500 people, the cancer patients, the doctors, the medical staff who were killed in the hospital that the Israelis attacked. Let's see. The BBC is no friend of Israel. It's biased against Israel. But they did a journalistic investigation. This is the BBC, no friend of Israel. And they were criticized recently by the Israeli president, Herzog, for what they did, for their bias. They're no friends of Israel. They said no bomb hit the hospital. Whatever it was not a bomb because it didn't create a crater. It had to be a rocket. Secondly, the BBC said, it landed in a parking lot. What, you keep cancer patients in a parking lot, in a car park? It's just a complete lie. Additionally, the Israelis provided footage that the BBC had of Hamas and Palestinian Jihad firing rockets towards Tel Aviv, which the Iron Dome was trying to intercept. One of the rockets misfired and came down, and there was an explosion. Additionally, the Israelis had recorded communication intercept of a conversation between a member of Palestinian Jihad and a member of Hamas saying that they did it. Do you see retractions by the mainstream media or by CNN? No, you don't. No, you don't. They believe what is an obvious lie. If the Israelis wanted to hit a building, a hospital or otherwise, they would have hit it with a precision-guided weapon. They don't miss. But they didn't. Israelis say it's not their policy to hit hospitals, even though Hamas uses hospitals to store ordnance. It came down in a parking lot next to the hospital. The Palestinians may be a gang that can't shoot straight, but the Israelis can shoot very straight. Secondly, there was no crater. It was not an Israeli bomb. It was a rocket fired from inside of Gaza. Those casualty figures cannot be verified. The hospital itself was not the target. It came down in a parking lot. The whole thing was just a big lie. But notice how people believe the lie because they wanted to. And they'll still believe a lie. You show them the factual evidence, it won't matter. They'll still believe a lie. Because their father is the father of lies.
Yeah. To be fair, Jacob, even the Wall Street Journal, which tends to be, you know what they are, very liberal on that side. They admitted the fact that yes, it was wrong. That actually it was the terrorists who misfired and it went into the parking lot with no structure to the hospital, no civilian casualties. So I got to hand it to them when they actually will say the truth, even though that's once in a while. I want to talk about real quick about the terrorist sympathizers. And it's been around the world that Hamas has had a lot of sympathizers from many parts of the world. And I want to bring in our brother David here, David Lufschaft from Sweden. And David, I know we had a lot of topics, and I know we gave you carte blanche to, come in whatever you wanted to talk about at the beginning. But I know we wanted to save this part for what's going on in Sweden and in Europe and some of the things you've seen there. And of course, we got another section on technology. But what's going on in Sweden? The Muslim invasion there that was, of course, perpetrated by the government, illegal immigration. But they're also targeting Swedes in Brussels and in Europe. So can you share a little bit about that before we get into the other topics?
Yes. So basically the government, the previous government, they allowed an uncontrolled immigration wave, which led to, this a lot of headache, I would say. And a lot of those immigrants are, of course, Islamists or Muslims. And now, of course, we have had supporting demonstrations for Hamas, which
incredible.
Is very, it's insane. And actually there are, but I think Swedes are actually, regular Swedes are not in favor of that. They understand it's wrong, but no one speaks up. It's just everything is just quiet, and also we have a history of a left-wing journalism here that always lifts up the Palestinian cause.
Really,
in every case, yeah.
Are they from America? Are they from the United States? Because we have a lot of it here.
Okay, well, this actually stretches back from the 70s, I think,
wow.
or even so. So it's very rooted here, I would say. And I just don't understand how they reason when you see what has happened down there, and you actually want to believe that you want to justify it. It's laughable, to be honest. I can have no words for it. It's just you know what they did. They deserve to be so punished. But they still try to find ways to justify their deeds. It's incredible. I don't know how to describe this. I think it's terrible.
David,
regarding sorry.
I'm sorry. I just had a question because it's actually being talked about in chat real quick. Given the pacificity of Sweden right now, and with all the illegal immigration that's going on, there's some comments saying that Sweden seems to be lost. Is there a glimmer of hope in Sweden to actually overcome some of these current issues with the unrestricted immigration, and then also claiming back its culture?
That's a good question. Thank you for that chat. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for whoever sent it. Appreciate it. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I think, of course, it's not lost in a way, assuming enough people come and support the opposing side, But if everyone has to remain quiet, which is a pretty common trait here, it's a terrible situation. I mean, no one dares to say anything because I guess most of them are cowards. But and it's just the status quo people. I don't know how to describe it. It's incredible. And with that attitude, yes, then it's a lost cause. But one thing that we have done is that we've actually people got tired of this, so they actually voted for different governments. And in that way, I'm not certain yet that it's completely lost, But this government at least dares to speak up against, the most serious forms of atrocities and what do you say, the errors that many of these people bring with them, And but the left-wing people, they're just in complete denial, willfully blind, I would say. So that is my perspective on it. I don't say it's completely lost, but I don't. If people just stay in a status quo world, yes, then it will be lost,
David, another question that I have is, culturally speaking, there's a Japanese proverb that says the unhammered nail desires to be beaten down. Would you say that Sweden has a similar thing, that they feel that the person that is complaining, the person that's being outspoken, that person is, because of their nonconformity, they should be, put to the side? Is that a similar cultural attribute, that they'd much rather get along to go along rather than stick out and actually be proactive?
Well, it's yeah, in a way it's true. Usually, political correctness was a really big thing here, and so in a way it's true, yeah. But if it's too bad, people still react. But it has to be terribly bad, and then they usually don't say that much. And then after that, they typically vote for the different government, and that's how it shows. So,
thank you for your answer.
David, you mentioned, thank you, brother. You mentioned something about the, your concerns about what's going on, the trends that you see, not only in Sweden. I think they killed, was it 2 Swedes in Belgium that they killed?
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah. So
go ahead.
That is the Quran burnings that has been happening in Sweden and Denmark mostly. And that has to do with certain individuals. And of course, I actually saw one of them by accident. I didn't go actively to see it, just happened to pass by. But of course, I can question their motives. I don't think they're actually, at least not the Danish guy, really wants to hates the Quran or anything. He just wants to, push a few buttons, so to speak. But the Iraqi guy, I think he's Iraqi. Sure, I can imagine that he's been, in war against people there. So maybe he's got a more honest intention, to just take a stand against it. But the problem is that, we got pretty many immigrants, and if they start to cause problem, it becomes a problem for the law enforcement. And the law enforcement, they now ask for military help. And that is, and also one more thing, that new government that we have, I mean, not that new, but fairly new, they're actually going to pass through a couple of changes in the law now that allows the law enforcement to monitor and people that are completely innocent just because of this. So that is, I'd say, a bit worrying, to be honest.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That I didn't know that was going on. You mentioned to me the trends that you see with the Islamic invasion, of course, in Europe and around the Western world. You mentioned something. It could be the reason that sparks the event of the second horse, and I agree with you on that. The second horse and the horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation 6 that could spark it. It's not it, but they could spark it. Can you comment that a little bit? Maybe we'll let Jacob comment that as well, regarding taking peace from the earth, because that's what the Revelation 6, I think it's 14, talks about. The second horseman of the apocalypse takes peace from the earth. Any thoughts on that, David?
Well, of course, I don't claim it is that. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
So
yeah,
to be clear, that I don't try to say that it is, but if they cause too much problem, people will get really angry, and you might actually end up in civil war. So it's it's that could be really dangerous.
Because this is a worldwide thing. It's not just isolated to a specific area.
No, exactly. So you see them protesting, and one there are some Christian channels here actually that are discussing, what if those we brought in are capable of the same kind of actions that we see down in Israel?
Really? They said that?
Yeah, they actually asked that question, a rhetorical question. And so they're actually discussing this in some Christian communities. But so that is, of course, if, as I said, if enough people cause a stir, they might actually cause a big problem. So, but that's just, as I said, I don't claim it is, but it's just an interesting thought. So.
I did have the same concerns, because here in the United States, you see the same thing. There's an applause, there's standing ovations, there's protests for Hamas. It seems to be even college students, high school students, politicians standing up for Hamas and literally rooting for the extermination of the Jews, the killing of babies, the innocent people that died, as if it's something that it was morally equivalent to the Jews defending themselves, because the Jews defend themselves, and this is the right thing to do to Jews. And it led me to think, like, at some point, this moral relativism, this idea that you're allowed to kill another person just on the basis of you don't agree, and it's openly cheered, can lead to a persecution of the Jews, persecution, obviously, we've seen that, persecution of believers worldwide, as you said. And you mentioned something about the iron not sticking to the clay. Can you comment on that as well? What they tried in Sweden, the multiculturalism there and around the world. Obviously, it's not just a Swedish problem, but it's a worldwide problem.
Yeah, it's this. Let's call it leftist idea. I don't know if that is correct, but I mean, in my mind, it is. And yes. It's just that everyone are equal in every respect, and therefore we can just mix everyone together in one big, nice pot or something, and hope that it will just turn out in a good soup or something. I have no idea how they think, but that is how they think, I think. And it just doesn't work, because they're so different cultures. They're not culturally compatible. I don't know how to describe it. It's just impossible. I don't. It's just the iron just don't stick to the clay. It's just it's just very good description of the situation, I would say.
Yeah, in Daniel chapter 2. Jacob, you talked about that a long time ago. You're referring to Daniel chapter 2 about the iron
Repeatedly, that multiculturalism will fail. Iron will not stick to clay, and to maintain some kind of a cohesion, particularly in a reconfederated Roman Empire of some description, that it's going to just keep failing and failing and failing. And that is one of the things that's going to cause them to turn to Antichrist. You'll bring about a unity that people can't with satanic power. This is absolutely true. When we just look at the situation of these protests, something we've already highlighted, but bears re-mentioning. If you were to ask these same students, do you believe in homosexual and lesbian rights? They would say yes.
Oh, yeah, they would. Yeah.
Do you believe in women's rights? They would say yes. Okay, so Hamas is controlled by Iran. They believe in Sharia. You believe women should have to wear the halabja and shouldn't be allowed out without their husband and things of this. You believe that suppression of women. Yeah, I mean, you agree with it. Oh, well, then why are you pro-Hamas? They couldn't answer that. They're too stupid to even realize what they're saying.
It's called cognitive dissonance, right?
Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, absolutely. And if you're manifesting a cognitive dissonance, and if you were to say to them, okay, so you think the Iranian sponsors of Hamas and Hamas do the same thing, the capital execution of homosexuals. You agree with the capital execution of that homosexuals should be taken out and hung. Well, then why are you pro-Hamas? The Israelis don't do that to homosexuals. You're not making sense. You're not speaking logically. There's no logic to these people. They may go to prestigious universities, but again, as Paul said, professing to be wise, they become fools.
It's like you send your kid to Harvard and Yale, and you go, "What did I do?
An idiot."
Yeah, what did I do wrong?
And it's the professors. You know, there are exceptions, but always remember, those who can't do teach.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're no good in a pulpit, become a professor of theology in a seminary. Are there exceptions? Yes, but they are exceptions. If you're no good on Wall Street, become a professor of economics. Are there exceptions? Yes, but they are the exceptions. If you're no good in court, become a professor of law at Yale Law. Are there exceptions? Yeah, Dershowitz is an exception, but he's an exception. There are exceptions. In non-scientific fields particularly, those who can't do teach. So the students are coming out morons because their professors are tenured morons. Parasites.
Every single one of those students are probably very much pro-abortion as well. And what they don't understand is that's their ideology, because their political ideology will be aborted if ever we had Sharia law instituted. They wouldn't. They would be the first to go. They would be the first to be canceled.
Yep. Also, in the most common abortion procedure, a D&C, or partial birth abortion, when you do the suboccipital puncture into the cranium of a fetus, you do that to the heads of babies. That's why they don't have any problem with Hamas beheading little Jewish babies.
You got it. It's a culture of death. We've imported that, and we love it because as a culture, they love it, and societies love it. Proverbs 8 tells us, those who don't seek the Lord, they love death, and that's exactly what is happening in the world. I wanted to ask something to David real quick about the state of the Christian church in Sweden. David, can you fill us in on what's going on there? I know Jacob talked about some persecution of street preachers there, but Jacob knew quite a bit about it. I was actually surprised because I hadn't heard that. But the state of the church, I know you told me that there are some churches that are small, they're good, but can you fill us in on what's going on in Sweden and how the church is represented there, the believing church, the faithful church?
Okay, so there's a Lutheran church that is the biggest one. That's the state church, you would call it. Now, of course, they separated the state and church, so that's, well, in a way, no longer true. But and then you have a lot of evangelicals, you could call them. It's like the Pentecostals, and a lot of different movements that are fairly close to what you can see in the US, for instance. And and then there are some even smaller congregations, and there are a lot of congregations of the smaller size, and there are actually quite a few sound such churches there. I have to say that, and but the big ones, they are just totally utterly lost, I would say, especially the Lutheran Church.
Mm.
And just from my personal experience, I went in for, that was like a couple of years ago, in a meeting, and I had there, of course, they talked about these paintings that come from the Catholic Church, and I saw a really ugly painting there. I thought, like, yeah, okay, so what is this? Yeah, and I talked about, yeah, it's about God and whatever. And then they actually asked the Holy Spirit to fill the painting.
Oh, brother.
That is like unbelievable. I grew up as a missionary kid. I was almost scared of sitting in the congregation. It's unbelievable. I really have to say that. And so, and in another meeting, there was, of course, then a lesbian priest and a gay priest in the same congregation, and we usually take like a bread like this, and then we dip it into the wine, and then after that we take. I was so suspicious, so I kept to this and decided to wait until they really tell. And then the lesbian priest said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Life Giver, this name, take this bread," and I just threw it away. So, and there are more stories like that. For instance, another Lutheran church I went, that was supposed to be more conservative, they had a Jesus statue, and they stood and bowed to it like this.
Oh no!
Like several times. Unbelievable. It's like it's a statue. What is your problem? Can't you read the Bible? Like, and I mean, so that is like, the state of the Lutheran Church. And then, of course, I can't really say that much bad about the Pentecostal Church because I'm not into that so much more. But I actually read in the newspaper that they are now discussing to make compromises on the same-sex marriage discussion. But I don't want to judge them there because I don't think they have come to a conclusion yet. I just hope that they will stand up, as they actually have been pretty conservative, I would say, for a while. So I hope they will stay there. So that's short descriptions of the church. Then, of course, you have the loyal ones, which are much smaller in size, and they're. I must say that they are, of course, serious and take their faith seriously, and but they are very small in size. It's like maybe 10, 15, 20 perhaps. Wow. Usually in a congregation. Yeah. But I guess there are more organizations like that around the country, on the countryside. So that's my what do you say, assessment.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, that's like a true remnant among a nation that had a state religion, state church has changed, and they literally have become like a Western country with the Western sins and allowed illegal immigration. Well, legal immigration, I suppose. It wasn't illegal. I mean, I think the country brought Islamist immigration in. Now
that's. I mean, another story from the church is like there was a female bishop, I think. No, maybe not a bishop, but anyway, a female very high up in the organization. And we had a church that was from the Swedish state church, and she wanted to convert this church to a common place for other religions to come and worship too. So she said like, yeah, so we will now take down the cross because that's offensive.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Then we will put up the, whatever, as long as they're happy. So it's just, I mean, that's very bad.
Yeah, no. Now, you mentioned you grew up as a missionary kid. I forgot you mentioned that when we first met you, missionary kid. And did you grow up in Sweden, or did you grow up abroad, international?
Well, I grew up when I was 2. I moved to Mexico, and then I went down to Honduras when I was like 5, I think, or something, and then I went back when I was 7 to Sweden, and I've been to Sweden since then. But
Okay.
and well, we of course visited the other countries around, like Guatemala and Nicaragua, for instance.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and yeah. So
how's your Spanish?
Oh, that's too bad. I know some words. I can form some simple sentences, but
Oh, good. Maybe
yeah,
we'll
but
have a little
it's
chat.
it's not that good.
That's all right. We'll have a little chat. Yeah, Jacob actually knows quite a bit, and he can have a full-on conversation. Him and I went to Mexico, and they thought he was one of their guys. They call him Jacobo. And Jacob, you mentioned the persecution of believers of a street preacher there, and David, do you know any of that sort of antagonism against true Christianity in Sweden?
Well, of course, usually it comes from liberals, like they usually want, they don't like to hear that what they're doing is wrong, so if someone preaches against it, of course they will try to bite him as hard as they can, So that is what I think happened to one preacher who just read Romans 1.
Oh,
That's all he did, and just quoted it, and he got I think he got sued actually.
wow.
But that's quite many years ago. So,
I remember
but it's usually from the liberals.
Oh, liberal churches. Jacob, go ahead.
he was in jail for about a month, and there was an appeal, and he got out, and they threatened to take it to the European Court of Justice.
Man.
Yeah, and it was the same as with Canada. Romans 1.
Oh,
That preacher got fined $15,000 in Canada for reading Romans 1 in a church in a pulpit.
oh, whoa. It reminded me of that. She's part of the government. I think she still is in Finland.
Yeah.
I forget her name at this moment, but she was actually criticizing her own church, the Lutheran Church, for allowing open homosexuality in her church. And so the real issue was just her and her church. That was really the only thing. And she posted Romans 1 on her, basically on her statement to the church. So the church turned her in to the government, and ever since then, even though she's been acquitted twice, they dropped the charges. The church, the Lutheran Church, keeps going after her, and
a prosecutor, a woman prosecutor. Well, that woman prosecutor is almost certainly going to go to hell. She's going to be on trial, and she will not have she will not have a lawyer. Christians have a lawyer. We have an advocate with the Father.
Amen.
Who can get us off and who will get us off, because we've all sinned. We have a lawyer who can get us off. These other guys are not going to get off.
Yeah.
That is what I just don't understand. To get a priest in the Swedish church, it's a pretty big effort to get there. You have to read the Bible quite a lot. I mean, can't they read the Bible? Or I just don't understand. It's just a mystery to me.
Yeah, it's I don't live too far from Fuller Seminary here and Claremont Theological Seminary, not too far from my house. But Jacob knows this because we make a joke about it, here and there. But there are people there, David, that professors who they get their degree in theology, they get the degree in Bible hermeneutics and all these things, history, archaeology, and they are unbelievable. They're atheists. Some of them are homosexuals, but they know the Bible. They read it, but as many times we see it in Scripture, they profess to be wise, to become fools, but they never come to the knowledge of the truth. Paul says they're always learning, but never come to the
Yeah,
knowledge of the truth.
and it professes to be an evangelical institution still.
Yeah, yeah, Fuller, yeah.
Lesbian Students Fellowship. It's like Georgetown professes to be a Jesuit Roman Catholic institution. But it's
It by far. I wanted to finish the episode of Catching Up talking about the technology that is coming, and I talked to David a little bit about technology, and he's aware of some of the things going on. I wanted to get his take on it. Amazon just released some of the footage of their new robots that are coming in to replace jobs. Now, they made it very clear it's not to replace workers; it's just to do some menial jobs. Is what they promote and what they're calling it. But they're very upset that their current workers are going for unions, going after unknowing rights, what they call it, of union rights, and they don't want to pay anymore, and they strike and all these things. So Amazon has pretty much had it with them, and like a lot of companies, they can't keep up with the amount of wages that they have to pay for some of these jobs, especially here in California. So they got some robots, and this robot in particular is called Digit, made by Agility Robotics, and it's based in Oregon, and they're working with Amazon. And basically, this robot, we've saw the footage of it. This robot can walk backwards, forwards. They can move sideways. They can crouch down. They can take a box. They can move bins, and some of these jobs are going to be done away with. And so I wanted to start there, and then we can proceed into some of the things that David was talking about in terms of the chipping in Sweden and some of the technology that's coming into Sweden. But David, what's your take on this robotic? It's the natural outcome of just having high salaries, high taxation, high salaries, and these companies have to save money somehow, some way, and they're reducing the work population and going for more robotics. But eventually, artificial intelligence will have a lot to play on this. And what's your take on this? Before we talked about the chipping in Sweden, what's your take on the robotic craze right now?
I actually I'm I'm a software engineer, so I know a little bit, but not much. And I actually gone some courses in AI, but not I have not worked with it professionally. So I actually don't know how they professionally do the robotics.
Yes,
but,
no worries.
But I think they're onto something with the humanoid robots, because when you see the videos about it, they're not that efficient. If you would just have instead an automatic, automatic fork truck, that is actually pretty efficient, and they already exists, and that could do the same job much more efficient. So I always say that they're working on something, and they try to have it as a kind of R&D session for the robotics. That is me as a technician, speaking like that. But whether they will succeed or not, well, I guess we'll see. Maybe probably for some menial tasks, as they say, but we'll see how it progresses after that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Did you see? We watched the drone footage, didn't we? The blimp that releases all these drones. That to me was, it was in Japan, and that to me was just sort of, eerie dystopian type stuff. That you got this blimp and have this drone, and then all your packages will be delivered. This is Amazon, of course, and they just got a clearance here in the United States to deliver package at some point. They have to do a lot of testing at some point, deliver a package through drones. What a world, isn't it, David? What a world.
Yes, indeed. Of course, I read about this project for quite a few years from Amazon specifically about delivering packages, But, I guess they're trying to cut costs, or just maybe they're, in a way you could argue that if you just have machines everywhere, there will be no compassion, if you need something, it will just be plain no, because the database entry says that you are not allowed to receive any packages or whatever. And that way you can have a machine control, all delivery, everything, and you have no way to get, your items, even if you want to. So maybe, I don't know, it's just speculation though. But
No, yeah, no, I understand it. It just seems like, you once you start down this road, that you less and less need humans to do very, the simple capacity of delivering and stuff like that. And of course, the big talk in here in United States, but especially in California, which usually dictates the rest of the state, is UBI, Universal Basic Income, because they say, look, people need jobs, but there's no jobs. People need work, but there are no work, or it's too expensive. So we're just going to put people on UBI. Now there's a list of different counties in California, depending on where you live. You can get, $500, $700, whatever it is, and usually this is copied by other liberal states. Now this is universal basic income because of need. Now, David, you mentioned the chipping in Sweden.
So the chipping has been going on for like 8 years, I think, at least. And it started like the most dedicated people took it in. It's not like, of course, this is not the ultimate mark that we're about in the revelation, but it is a precursor to it, of course. And I think what they try to do at a higher level, I mean, probably. Outside Sweden, I guess, is to see how people react. How can we make it, people accept it? And I think as long as they just make it small enough and, give enough incentives, people will actually think about it. And I had like at least 2 co-workers that I worked on a small company, not a large company, that were considering getting a chip for convenience, So, and of course, in a way, you could argue it is a convenient way to solve some problems. Of course, instead of having codes and whatever, you just wave your hand like this, and you don't need any digits, codes, or anything, So sure, it is a convenient way.
Very much so.
Same with the payments. You wave your hand. You don't need any codes or anything. It's just to wave the hand. It's gonna.
This chip, it goes into the hand. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It goes into the hand, and I haven't prepared the video for it, but
no worries.
They take they take it in here somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
About the camera.
You can see it.
So it started with the left hand, but now most people take it in the right hand. So
really,
yep.
Interesting. Well, I guess a lot more convenient. More people are right-handed, right? It would make sense to do it on the right hand for some reason or another. I'm not sure if that plays a role in it, but on the right hand.
But I mean, I think eventually it will be the right hand because most people are right-handed, but it's I don't know. I wouldn't, but since this is not probably it is most likely not the ultimate mark, so to speak. But it's more like a playground for analyzing how people react and what to do about it.
Yeah, and what's the general response of Swedes? I mean, they see it. It's the average person just going, man,
the general person, they don't know the Bible, so they just think it's great. I mean, it's like in one of the videos I saw, it's like, oh, it's so 2019, like it was in 2019, but they think it's some cool thing. It's have their parties afterwards, usually when they take their chip, but it's just completely oblivious to anything related to the Bible, of course, because they don't believe. So that's how it is in the general population.
Yeah, I mean, what do the churches say? What do believers say? Maybe not the churches, but what do believers that what do you guys think of this?
Well, most think like, oh no, don't bring up that again. I don't know how to, it's they're a bit. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a bit numb of the subject, and they don't really react to it. And you try to have your read Revelation, Like, and it's like you have to remind them, and then say, yeah, so maybe it's just a coincidence,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But that's not all of them, but
Yeah.
some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I understand. Jacob, what do you think of this? I mean, literally, it's happening very close to what the Bible describes as we're not saying it's the mark, but very close to what the Bible describes it as.
Like the constellation of world events, and like basically I'd call it a constellation of apostasy in the church that involves everything from ecumenism to exvangelicism, where people are deconstructing the gospel, to a constellation of technological development, to a constellation of events evolving in the sphere of monetary policy and global economics. All of these things are converging to Revelation 13, all of them. What you see in the political sphere, what you see in the religious sphere, what you see in the technological sphere, and what you see in the economic and monetary sphere, all of these things are coming to Revelation 13. What is impressing me more is the speed at which it's happening. Again, we never speculate about dates. The end is not yet, but you just look at what Jesus told us in the Olivet Discourse in light of Revelation chapter 6 and the seals. Wars and rumors of wars, but the end is not yet. Then persecution, then food shortages, which prices going up in Revelation.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, and then and then an increase in seismic activity and so forth. These things, and also there was something released day before yesterday, an increase in extraterrestrial phenomena, and a radio energy burst that is the biggest in recorded history of unknown origin hit the Earth. I mean, signs in the skies in the heavenlies.
Right, exactly.
And these things are getting more and more frequent. The signs are there. But as David pointed out, people don't know the scripture, and they have no clue what these things mean. Now, we are to know what they mean, but the others aren't going to know. However, by the others, I don't simply mean the world. I mean the apostate church. Remember Daniel, none of the wicked will understand.
That's right.
I was thinking one more thing about the AI. And one thing to, when they use these models to learn the AI, they actually capture, I would say, the zeitgeist, and so, when you have a Christianity that has exclusive claims, it's gonna be seen as, something
racist.
It's out of the ordinary. That's not the norm. You're wrong. Like, and why? Well, because this so super smart AI or whatever is saying something else,
Yep.
And that is just an interesting remark, and I also agree with that. That the interesting thing is not like exactly every detail in everything that is happening. It's like it's actually happening as it is written,
Yes.
Well,
And that is very interesting, I think.
It's more than interesting. What David is saying, I don't know how popular it is in Sweden, but we know many Hollywood celebrities have subscribed to Scientology, to the cybernetics cult of L. Ron Hubbard. And they do these audits, psycho auditing, which they see as spiritual. And they have a meter, literally a meter. And they ask questions, and they consider the meter, what the meter determines, to be infallible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, the meter said it must be right. Yeah, well, they consider this invented technology, this meter that people invented, to be infallible. That's what they do with their so-called audits. One of the main places is down by San Jacinto, California.
Yep. Not too far from here. Yeah.
But you look at how many celebrities, and we live in an era where there's a culture of celebrity, where people will believe things are right. They'll vote a certain way because a Hollywood entertainer tells them to. They'll get a vaccine, a COVID vaccination because Whoopi Goldberg tells them to. And the culture of celebrity, people do what they're told by celebrities.
That's
and
right.
we have so many celebrities the meter said it. It must be right. The meter's now that's just a stupid meter. Can you imagine if you have artificial intelligence that can present a persuasive case why you should believe it?
Yeah. Especially if they have general intelligence, once you get into like general, which a lot of people don't think they will ever happen, but some people believe it will happen.
As a technician, I think artificial intelligence is going to mostly be used for tracking and monitoring people. So it will be an instrument of control. So I'm that is a bit worrying, to be honest, because
surveillance. Yeah,
it's gonna be like you're not gonna be able to hide anywhere wherever you are, basically.
Yikes!
Because if you just show your face in one place,
it'll capture
it.
Yeah, it'll capture.
And then you have some intelligence system or whatever that will find you out. And if that is okay for now, now we have recently, fairly okay governments, But what if you get the government where they actually, like in Hitler's Germany, they actually want to find the Jews or whoever they are? It's going to be terribly efficient.
Yes.
So
what David says is exactly correct. If you look at the history of science fiction, going back to Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and submarines, all this kind of stuff, he predicted things that seemed like fiction, but technologically, he was a visionary. They happened. He was a prognosticator. When you look at things that Ian Fleming wrote about James Bond, when he had transponders and he had GPS, you know what I mean? He had sat-nav in James Bond's Aston Martin in the 90s. This seemed so futuristic. It was like a fantasy. Well, everybody has sat-nav now on their cell phone. They have it in their car. These things that seem to be fantastical or fantastic or too futuristic to be viable, they become the reality. And you see these things happening in pop culture developing. They're very often going to be tomorrow's realities. They're going to be science fiction. They're just going to be science. Just look at Ian Fleming. Look at Jules Verne. Look at another one was a person who tried to explain it. And he explained it well. Was Alvin Toffler, who wrote Future Shock and the Third Wave.
Oh yeah.
What David is saying is exactly right. The tracking. Well, think of a John Wick movie. That crazy. I know a Christian guy who watches John Wick, and he showed it to me. And they could trace anywhere he went, and they would, they'd have people waiting for him. And the movie made, they knew where he exactly was at any given. Well, that seems like a futuristic fantasy in a John Wick movie. Well, it's going to be like Jules Verne and Ian Fleming. David is exactly right. It's going to be a real technology. Where are you going to hide?
You can't. Yeah, exactly.
Except for the palm of the Lord.
Only the Lord, exactly. So, yeah, we're coming to the end of our episode here, catching up.
One more thing that we must have, absolutely must have.
Why don't we do it for backstage, Jacob? Why don't you just save it for backstage, since we're going to go into backstage in just a few minutes? And
it's really important that I'd like as many people as possible to see it. But just take a moment.
How long?
Less than 5 minutes.
All right.
Give me a break. To the people who are meeting people who are pro-Hamas, and they think that Hamas is fighting a liberation cause on behalf of the Gazans or on behalf of the Palestinian Arab Muslims, and that they're a liberation army or they're partisans or they're freedom fighters, and they're fighting a just cause for liberation from an Israeli occupation, even though Israel has not even occupied Gaza. There's no there was no blockade and there was no occupation. Let's look at what the absolute elder statesman of Hamas says. Now, he's not in Gaza. He's in Qatar in a 5-star hotel. This is what you see happening in Gaza is really about. Is it about liberating so-called Palestine, or from the river to the sea, or is it about something else? This is what Hamas themselves says it's about, and this is their number one elder statesman, senior leader. Can you play it, James, quickly?
You got it, Chicken.
اليوم أنت تستطيع أن تقول أننا وصلنا إلى حالة الردع والدفاع عن الأرض المحتلة. لما نتكلم أن احنا جيش القدس ونتكلم عن معركة الوعد الآخرة، لا نتكلم فيها لأننا سنحرر أرضنا فقط، ولكن لأننا نؤمن بأن ما قاله نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم عندما قال زوى الله تعالى لي الدنيا وفي لفظ آخر الأرض فرأيت مشارقها ومغاربها وأن ملك أمتي سيبلغ ما زوي لي منها. إنه 510 مليون كيلومتر مربع وهي مساحة الكرة الأرضية سوف تعيش حالة لا ظلم فيها ولا قهر فيها ولا خيانة ولا صلة ولا مسيحية غادرة ولا قتل بهذه الحجم، هذه الجرائم التي ترتكب بحق الشعب الفلسطيني والشعب العربي في كل الدول العربية، سواء كانت في لبنان وسوريا وفي العراق وفي
They say this is their number one leader, their number one patriarch. This is their elder statesman. He says, what you see happening in Gaza is not about Gaza. It is not about Palestine. It is not about getting rid of Israel and establishing a Hamas state from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. It is about establishing an Islamic jihadist caliphate on all 510 million square kilometers of the Earth's surface, in which we will not just get rid of the Zionists and the Jews, we will get rid of the Christians and Christianity. That's what we're fighting for, says Hamas. Anybody who says it is about liberating Palestine is a liar. Anybody who believes it is about liberating Palestine is a moron. That's their words.
Persecution is coming. Global jihad. It's global jihad. I don't know how many ways they have to say it before we believe them. I don't know how many ways they have to say it before we believe them, but they've been saying that, telegraphing it, smoke signaling it. Obviously, you heard it here.
Since
so
600 AD.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. As we finish our catching up episode, I'm turning it over to Jay real quick. We got a special video that's going to come out. We did an interview just this week, and I think everybody ought to watch it.
Yeah, we previously talked about this in one of the Catching Up with Jacobs, probably about 5 or 6 episodes before. It was about a young mother that had a son that went to school where there was a rant by one of her teachers. Anyway, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Ellison, and we will be posting that full interview for you to watch on Rumble and Moriel TV. So I will link that in the description of this live stream and also the final edited version. Please take a look at it. It's like catching up to catching up.
Yeah, it's a wonderful follow-up because he's actually contacted us. He wanted to let us know what was really behind the agenda and what they're doing with children in school. So if you need to watch that, actually, you need to watch that. All of us here should watch it, but everybody watching Catching Up should watch that video. It is fantastic. You ought to do it, and please get a hold of it. It's exclusive for Moriel.tv and Rumble, so you won't find it here. We'll post it later. I think it's probably safe, but we wanted to go to Rumble and Moriel.tv first. So excellent. Good stuff. Thank you, Jay, for actually doing that interview. It's fascinating. So we appreciate the lady that reached out to us and got it down. So that's it for Catching Up. We're going to Backstage. So we're going to leave it in YouTube and Facebook Live. We're going to stay on the other platforms. So please come to the other platform. And we got some questions for Jacob. And we got some questions for David. David, a lot of folks have enjoyed you being here with us. We appreciate you being here with us. You're not done, so don't leave yet. We have some questions coming up for you. Some questions coming up for you and Jacob. So God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us on Catching Up. We'll see you on Backstage in just a few minutes.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan, to India to Africa, and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.